Welcome to estate planning, which can be a very dry experience. Estate planning your legacies, securing future. And when I first met Nicole Harvey, saw her on the website. She looked like like a real attorney. She got the glasses. She's got that serious look on her face. But then, in the course of talking to her, not only do I discover this other side of her, this funny side of her, but she actually has a book called "I Hope You Die Laughing." Now, I come from a world where we use embedded commands in our sales scripts. And so you might look at an embedded command as part of the sentence you're telling somebody to do. I hope you die, comma, laughing. As a, and I thought, that's a terrible thing for a book. And I said to her, like, no, and she laughed. So one of our laughing attorneys, one of the most fun attorneys, somebody who really, I think, feels that the estate planning process should not be like a root canal, but should be more like a tickle contest with your teenage friends. Nicole Harvey from Nevada Council LLC. Nicole, thanks for coming back to estate planning.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy talking with you.
Okay, I hope you die laughing.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm really
not your normal attorney book title.
Yeah, I think I came up with the title and then I was convinced I had to write the book. But I've tried to exemplify my approach to consultations, to beginning this process with people, and not just the things that I talk about, but the approach that I bring, and certainly not every moment and not every person is ready or appreciates humor in the process. But I do find that a little humor helps, right? A little sugar helps the medicine go down. And these are extraordinarily difficult topics that we like to avoid. Typically it's something has brought us to this moment where we're finally ready to sit down with somebody and talk about it. It's taken something to bring us here. So it's just kind of my way. And it's something I think I learned as a kid. My dad made a joke once. We were driving in traffic past a graveyard. And when I realized what it was as a little kid, I got scared, and I said, Dad, there's a graveyard out there. And he said, that's a great business to be in. And that kind of blew my little mind. Like, what do you mean that's a business? And he says, well, somebody owns the graveyard and they sell the graves. And I said, wow, why is that a good business? And he says, because people are dying to get in. And ever since then, I never felt scared going past a graveyard. A little bit of humor made that easy to cope with. So, certainly I could give you 1,000 other examples, but I think that's true for all of us. Like if we can embrace those things that frighten us with humor, they're usually easier to face. And once we face them down and get through it, it's really not as bad as we thought it was going to be. I hear that all the time from clients. You made this so easy. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. It really is just that psychological fear that prevents us from doing it.
Well, and you see, you have 1,000 examples. You literally have one for every chapter of your book.
At least. Yeah.
Well, at least when to start the chapter, and there's a couple in the middle with cartoons and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth reading, and definitely an interesting take on it. And, I think part of the process for me, I don't do estate planning. I'm not an attorney. I'm a real estate agent. But I see when people clearly need it. They're buying a house in their own names here in California. You need an estate plan. Or if they own a house in their own name, it's maybe a little late, but let's get started on it and get on that right away. So I see people need it and refer them. And I always feel like I'm referring somebody to a dentist for a root canal. And I almost feel like I'm saying, instead of, hey, you should go to the dentist and have a checkup because a healthy mouth is a happy mouth. I really feel like I'm saying, yeah, you should go to the dentist and he's going to drill a hole in your tooth down to the bone. It's going to smell. It's going to hurt, but you need to get that done. I feel like that when I refer people for estate planning. So let's talk a bit about how is it that you disarm people? Obviously, you can't be frivolous. It's nice to have fun.
No, of course
this is serious material.
Yeah. And truly, like the light humor is just one piece of it. In my practice, we consider ourselves a high touch firm. We really don't expect our clients to lift a finger in this process. We do the heavy lifting for them. So I hear from people, we started this 3 years ago and we just haven't really gotten anywhere because the law office sent us a big packet to fill out. And we just never got around to filling out the packet. So it sits there collecting dust and nothing is happening. Our approach is to have this hour-long consultation where, we're having a detailed discussion and we're listening closely and taking very detailed notes. So that really the burden on the client to have to provide further information is minimal. We really hold our clients' hands and help them through it. And I think that's really, next to humor, I think that's a great way to facilitate this process for people, because once they realize this isn't going to be hard, I think a lot of people have a fear of looking dumb. Like this isn't something they talk about, and they don't want to look dumb in front of a stranger or in front of their spouse. And so there's that intimidation factor. And so really, helping people realize like, you know, all the answers to the questions I need to ask you. You walk around with these answers every day. I think every one of us has an estate plan in our head. Like if something happened to me today, this is what I would want. Right. Yeah. So you already know the answers, and helping them feel, confident in that usually helps people open up. And the more comfortable people are and the more they open up, the more details we get, to have a more thorough plan, a more thoroughly executed plan, where everything is funded and we haven't, mistakenly left something out.
When you said that first, I kind of resisted to that concept that people have the plan in their head. When I think about it, well, of course they do. Like nobody would say, what I want to do is languish in probate court in LA County court system for like 3 years and pay attorney's fees and filing fees and have some objectors show up that I never heard of, try to steal. Nobody would come up with that concept. But in their mind, they think, well, I'd like to just transfer the property here. How can I do that without going through a court process? And they kind of have a plan in their mind, but it's just not maybe effective. And then your job is to take that and make it effective.
Right. And, a lot of folks really do a lot of research on their own. They Google, they find forms. A lot of times I have folks come in and say, well, we filled out these documents. Could you just review them and tell us if it's okay or, if we're missing something? And, it really depends on what they're bringing me. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to tell you it's absolute garbage, but please don't use this, versus, sometimes it's like, well, I can tell this is a US standard form. Here's some things that Nevada provides if you would consider using Nevada's form. So it still becomes custom tailored advice, So I think it's something a lot of people think about and people sort of work on, but it's pretty rare for us to actually finish it. Something like 68% of people, according to AARP, 68% of adults are walking around without an estate plan, without any documents.
I'll tell you a stat that I have not seen in writing, I've been looking for, which is the do-it-yourself online versions. And they know the data. I am sure that they have a staff meeting every week to improve the number. What percentage fill out a plan online and don't execute the plan and record the key documents. And I'm going to guess, just on my own experience, less than 10% finish it all the way through. I have no basis for that other than I've seen 10 customers and one had it done. I've seen that ratio consistently in my practice. Of course, I'm going to see the ones that aren't done. I get that more likely. But I know in your practice, you talk about a 28-day turnaround. It just seems to me that if you have some sort of a deadline, it kind of forces the issue. Like there's a forcing function, at least try to get the thing done rather than leave it open-ended. So talk about that. Talk about your process and how you try to get people at least to get a version done at some point.
And it's a delicate balance because on the one hand, as your lawyer, as your advocate, as somebody who cares about you, I don't want to push you into a decision you're not ready to make. I don't want you to be signing these documents if you aren't comfortable and confident about what you're signing. Right. On the other hand, I do want to encourage you to finish it. And so, one of the really simple things we do is at each meeting, before we end that meeting, we schedule the next meeting, right? So, usually a lot of my clients, we have our consultation that's very thorough. We have a document review where we walk through all the documents together, and then we release the drafts to the client where they can take their time. But we've also scheduled a signing date. So we'll ask them, do you want a week, 2 weeks, a month? How much time do you want to sit with your documents, and be able to make changes? And most folks will say, give us a week. And then, when they're coming in to sign, they've had plenty of time to look at things. They're comfortable with it. We recently had a couple, they needed a little more time. They needed a little more explanation. I think we went on to like 3 review meetings before they felt comfortable. And there was a lot to think about. They had a lot of moving parts, lots of grandkids and, Brady Bunch family, that kind of thing. But still, we kept that going by just scheduling the next meeting at every meeting, and that's it, really. The careful follow-up, too, when they call to reschedule, like, absolutely, you can reschedule. Let's do that right now.
Yeah, I kind of learned that from the court process, which is in probate court, they always have a next date for something, some sort of a filing or shall cause date. And there's never anything without some next, matter scheduled. And I've kind of taken that to my business as well. On the flip side, I have doctors who, set follow-ups, and I go to the administrator and give them the information that I never get the date set. And next thing you know, it's been 3 years since I saw a doctor for a checkup. That's not good. Now, there's another side to this, and I do want to be sympathetic to my customers, which is sometimes the reason why they don't complete it is they're just not yet comfortable making a decision. And I have one estate that I'm involved with. It's a $40 million estate where he paid a lot of money to an estate planner. They have a very exotic book done with a very detailed plan that he never executed.
Oh my!
Part of me just thought, well, he's busy, he never got around to it. I'm sure there's a component, but also part of it is, well, he's writing out of that plan certain people. He's writing into the plan certain people. Is he really ready for the consequence of that while he's alive? And maybe that's effective. And I often feel like people don't take the time to think about it. I would imagine a review meeting might be a good chance with you to, one more time, Nicole, if I write him out, what happens? Or what if he gets a percentage? I would think the review meetings are maybe working through the second or third time those same issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it's, it's funny when you're married a long time. I think sometimes you forget to have important conversations together because you're just kind of in your rhythm all the time. And so
who are you talking to?
Hey,
what's in the room? Be careful here.
I think sometimes that review meeting really becomes the best moment to have that conversation between spouses, because I am right there to answer those, like, well, could we do this? Well, Nicole, what does that do? And then they can sort of continue their conversation. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that get hashed out, whether it's how much to give to which beneficiaries, or, which charities do we care about, or, which kids or whomever will serve as the best agent, for finances and for healthcare. And sometimes that's different people. So for some families, I mean, there's a lot of roles here, and they are big conversations. Yeah.
Can be. I think we'd be a little sensitive sometimes. On one hand, I feel like, yeah, they can get it done. On the other hand, maybe we as providers have to think about what could we have done to follow up and make sure they both had the capacity to make a decision and then followed up on getting it done. And I think that we probably fall into both those categories. And I'm on my own plan. I'm guilty of the same thing. There's changes to make, and I go, I'll get to that. Well, yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah. When. Yeah.
So let's talk about what has to be done in person. You're based in Nevada. I do know that as a real estate broker, we now have more technology available. We can even do remote notary in a way we couldn't do that before legally, but maybe you don't want to. And I think in estate planning, there's also other considerations about in-person versus remote. So talk about what absolutely has to be done in person in your office or their home or whatever works out. And then what are things that you advise to be done in your office, but maybe under circumstances can be avoided and done online?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have more and more clients who aren't in Nevada, who are out of state, taking advantage of Nevada LLCs, Nevada Asset Protection Trusts, those kinds of vehicles. And most of that work is done virtually. We do consultations on Zoom. We can do document reviews on Zoom. We can, like you said, we can sign over, with one of those remote notaries. So truly, a lot of our clients, the whole interaction is remote. Wow. Now there are times when I do become concerned that we should do something in person. And that's typically if I'm concerned about the capacity of the person I'm speaking with. If Zoom isn't really giving me a clear picture, sometimes I prefer to meet with somebody in person, if
you see the caregiver over their shoulder with a knife at their neck,
right.
Is that a clue that maybe you should be in person?
The shadow behind them, yeah. So yeah, there's definitely times where I'm concerned about, the client's safety and what's really driving the conversation.
And particularly somebody who's new to the equation, is the trustee or administrator, and somebody who's writing out all the family members in exchange for my trusted caregiver, Joan, who I've known for 2 months now.
Right. In Nevada, we actually have a process for that situation, sort of an additional process after you sign everything, or even before, you go to a second attorney who reviews all the documents, meets with the signer, and says, tell me, what do you think your estate plan is going to do? And just kind of certifies that this is what they intend to do, talks to them about, are they being coerced in any way? And then that lawyer can certify that, this gift is not subject to that. immediate dismissal just because they're a caregiver. So there is an extra step we can take that certainly helps to safeguard families, and gets a lot of those objections out of the way, when it is a caregiver receiving a larger share or any share.
Is that an optional process, or is that a state required process?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, if you're really not worried about doing that, but it's really, you can do it for another $350 and just not worry about it.
Are the attorneys who do that certification specialize in that, or is there just any attorney can fill the same role, like a colleague can interview your people and use their judgment?
Yeah, it's usually other estate planners.
So it could just be a colleague. There's not like a special designated person who has that specialty.
No. You just have to know what you're reading and how to talk to people.
Well, it just seems like this is an area that's getting so important. I just see more and more contests, and the problem is, when it's kind of like getting cockroaches in your house. I imagine, don't have any. We did have rats. We got rid of them. Because once you get one in there, if you don't get them out right away, they multiply. And I think with a bad caregiver, there's nothing good that happens. Once they get in there, stuff just starts disappearing, and it becomes a problem. I know we actually had a problem with my mother-in-law's caregiver, and we worked it out. Fortunately, it worked out. But as people are growing older and these memory issues are becoming more significant, they're more victimized. You must have the same problem with individual family members, right? The classic cases, there's 3 siblings, one's living in the house and loves dad or mom better than the rest, and puts together the estate plan, and magically he's the administrator and he's also the sole beneficiary, the largest. Are those cases as well that you see? And
sure. Yeah. But I'll tell you, when bad things happen with caregivers and they don't get resolved as they did in your case, there is a structure in place, hopefully, that, kind of falls down around that person, including adult protective services and the police department.
Yes.
There was somebody arrested here recently. The rap list is extraordinary, but they've been, exploiting several elders at a time. So certainly that's happening. And I think too, one of the reasons we're seeing so much more of it is because, the baby boom is finally hitting that age range, where, it's just a large population, and it's a smaller population behind them. So I think we're going to continue to see, more and more of that activity for some time.
I think so. I think a combination of the economy was not as good the last 10 or 15 years, maybe as it might have been. So there's some siblings who feel kind of cheated or entitled. Also, a lot of immigrant population creates more opportunities because they don't speak English. They're not as comfortable seeking help, I think. It's a general rule. And so I think all those factors come together to create kind of this witch's brew of fraud that is growing. And the problem is people call me with these questions, and I refer them to like a litigation attorney. There's not much you can do. If you don't have $100,000 cash to pursue it, you don't really have, there aren't many options, really.
Yeah. Unless what they're doing is criminal, in which case you should call the attorney general in your state. Every attorney general should be taking that information and investigating it, or passing it off to the state's agency for like adult protective services. But you're right. If to sue civilly, you've got to deposit a retainer up front, and you're paying for that lawyer up front for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about kind of the global questions in business today, because I'm sure your customers are like you, small, medium, large businesses that are involved in our economy. And with artificial intelligence, it would seem to me half your clients must say, well, I can just get my own plan on ChatGPT.
Sure. Yeah.
The answer is they can. Yeah. They may not want to, but they can.
Well, it definitely is getting smarter and smarter every day by some measures of smartness. But it's certainly not any more human than it's ever been. And it doesn't have a law degree, and it doesn't practice law, and it's all of those things. So, it's like anything else. I think too, like we were talking about before, there's a lot of just online tools, whether they're AI or not. Nevada Council has online tools. In fact, we have a will package that's a very basic will, your powers of attorney, a couple other documents you need for $395. You don't even have to talk to us. And it's
why would you do that?
Really,
I'm going to talk to you, Nicole.
There are so many people that don't want to talk to a lawyer. Truly, they really the only way they're going to do it is do it themselves.
Yeah, but you're not like an attorney. You're like a real person. The other ones are really like talking insurance.
We do offer for a consultation fee. We'll look over your documents or help you sign them, to get them signed. But yeah, I think there's just so many people that is just what they're going to do. And AI certainly has become, I mean, I know it has in my daily life. Like, it keeps track of to-do lists like nothing else. It's really incredible how far you can stretch it. And it's part of all the tools and the platforms we use for everything,
Right.
for every aspect of managing our business or drafting documents. There's some AI component today that we never had before.
I know that where I've really taken a more professional approach to it, the results are astounding. For example, on a real estate transaction, I can put all the documents into a notebook, and then that notebook becomes very smart about that property. When I use a general, I'll use the same thing, like I'll get a home inspection, and I'll run it through several different AIs to see different opinions. And the general ones will catch most of it, but I'm getting paid to catch everything. I'm like, you're an attorney,
Right.
you're paid to catch somebody brings you an old estate plan. You can't just put it in ChatGPT and it lists 8 things and you miss 9 and 10. That might be your license. I mean, as a realtor, that might be my license. So we're expected to review these things and not just turn it to a computer. But I do find that the right tool that's focused on my business and my transactions does a really good job where I can go through the document afterwards and be way more effective than I might have otherwise been. So those are fine lines. Are you seeing your tools as an attorney growing with this AI faster than the individual? Or are you finding out stuff using these tools directly yourself?
Definitely. We're definitely using these tools. I affectionately refer to them as my robot, because I would think of this as a little kid imagining having a robot is essentially the value I'm getting out of this thing.
Right.
I mean, whether it's taking on basically what used to be secretarial tasks, and lightening that burden of my workload. I mean, the drafting, the review, like you talked about. I mean, ultimately, I'm still responsible for delivering the product, and so there's still always going to be that human element. But yeah, I mean, it feels like a super suit some days to be able to process, I guess, the quantity of work. I think that's really been the consistent trend over time that I've worked in this field, has been just like the quantity of work that you can produce that's still good quality, just continues to increase. And that's really where I see the difference with AI.
I would think it'd be interesting for somebody like you, where you could take, let's say, all the plans you did in the last year and compare them to the plans from the prior year. Like, what are the main changes? And just kind of, I think those are things that are coming downstream that will really help us be more effective in serving our customers. But that you can do on your own, right? You can't review all of last year's plans and all the prior year's plans and assess the distinctions, but the AI does that like in 30 seconds and gives you a pretty good analysis of those things. I think those are things that are coming as long as you use the same platform, then you can do that. If you use a different platform, then you're probably not able to.
Yeah. It's amazing. And there's a lot of good education out there too. I think that's evolving alongside it. Because I think that's the other thing is, like, there's some great tools, but if I don't know how to use them, I'm not going to get the value out of it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll go on YouTube all the time to see these tools they talk about, and like they just don't really effectively teach how to use it. And I'm kind of a techie. I kind of like playing with this stuff myself, so I don't mind. But I know there are people get lost in the weeds and in the programming part, so that's a challenge. So let's kind of my last time here with you again. I appreciate your time. Let's talk about the business side of it. Where does I know as a realtor, I'm on a campaign that every realtor in America should assess your new client buying a house, or your client selling a house, or your ones that own a house, which is all of them, whether or not they have an appropriate, legal status of the property, which in California probably means you have to have an estate plan with a trust 99% of the time. Sure. Not everybody, but I would say most time. Nevada might be a little different. You have different deeds and such, but at least assess you have the right system in place. And so I'm at campaign to do that. But I know that realtors are a small percentage of the estate planning business incoming to law firms like you. So if you don't mind sharing with us, like, where does your business typically come from? Are you consumer facing more? Do you work with other financial professionals? Would be the first question on that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our marketing really is a mix of both. We do a lot of consumer outreach through the socials, and Through some of the tools we make available, like I was describing the will package, we offer the financial and healthcare powers of attorney for free on our website. Wow. We won't even bother you with marketing or anything if you use them. There's also NDAs that businesses can use in their business. We have a deed parsing tool for people in real estate that have to review deeds and understand deeds. You can upload a deed. It'll parse out the legal description for you, which is why I wanted it, because I hate typing legal description. Wow. And it'll give you kind of a summary of like, what is this deed accomplishing? And, does it appear to be valid? So there's, tools like that we use to reach out really to both of those partners. There you go. There's our self-help page. Yeah, so that's our petition to set aside. That's for a small probate in Nevada, $150,000 or less. These are tough because it's a small enough amount that folks feel like they don't want to spend any of it on fees. And a lot of lawyers don't like to take them just because it's such a little thing, Right. So we have that available too. So we do a lot of that direct to consumer. But in terms of our referral partners, financial advisors certainly are a source. They're sitting down with people like you, looking at important big assets like you, and seeing how they're held. Do you have a trust? Do you want to put this in your trust? Maybe it's time you talk to somebody about a trust.
Why do you not? Are you sure you don't? Are you sure you don't want to?
Yeah. Or the ones that know me, they're like, here's a book, you read it, call this lady. She'll help you. Yeah. And I do find, that's another great purpose of the book that I wrote, I Hope You Die Laughing, is it's a great referral tool. So if you're in another state, stick your lawyer's card in there and hand the book to someone. It's an easier way to get them to look at it seriously. And then hopefully they're softened up to call that person and get it done. But CPAs are another source. A lot of our clients are business owners. We do some pretty cool asset protection planning for families who have a lot of assets. And we do have a lot of out-of-state clients for that. And so a lot of those come through CPAs or banker relationships. We do have good relationships with a number of banks and credit unions. One reason is we're looking for those really good referrals for high net worth families. But also we schedule our seminars with them, so we'll do a seminar series with a credit union or a bank at, 3 or 4 branches. We might do that once or twice a year.
So important, education, I think, on this matter. We learn so little about finance when we go through schools. The education we get from news is horrific. Mm. I have a podcast, and I found a positive experience last week. Dear Abby had a question about estate planning, which I was shocked. I didn't realize there was still Dear Abby, but actually it's her daughter took over the column. Okay. But she was talking about importance of estate planning. I thought that's great. Like people need to talk about these things because otherwise we're just wasting money going to the government for taxes and wasting money for attorneys who aren't really giving us value, but kind of cleaning up the mess afterwards. And so I think the education is so important. I appreciate that you do all that. Yeah. I had one more question I wanted to ask you. So let's talk about the book a little bit. The I Hope You Die Laughing. Is this something that you encourage individuals to do to learn the process, or is this a way more for them to understand your format, your process?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah. So the first 2 editions of the book, this is the 3rd edition. The first 2 editions were written for you to come and see me. But this edition is written for you to go see anybody, or choose not to see somebody and do it yourself online. But it walks you through, it's really my consultation in print, right? So the first chapter is about clearing hurdles and the psychological hurdles, but also the real life hurdles of like, why would you work with a lawyer? How would you pick one anyways when Google gives you 1 million? And just kind of how do you get through those steps? And then the next couple of chapters are the 3 things that we talk about in every consultation. What do you own? Meaning what's in your name, right? People come in and they're always like, I don't have an estate. I just have a house and some cars and some accounts. And that's what your estate is. Your estate is any property that's in your name, right? So that's the second thing we talk about is like, let's start thinking about the assets in your name that you want to plan for. And that really helps people get their head around what are we planning with? And then the next thing is, it's like, what's the value of that estate? And I never need to know your account number or your balance or anything like that. We're just getting a snapshot of like, what kind of planning do we need to do? Are you exempt from estate tax? Great. let's look at what are the values for the different levels of probate in our state, so we can start to strategize from where you're at, and reduce that likelihood of probate. Whether that's a trust plan or something else, depending on the size of what they have, right? And the book really shows that, this is different for, a little old person who doesn't own real estate and just has a few accounts versus, someone who's got planes and mini houses and rentals and all that kind of stuff. So it's different, right? You got to start from that scope. So once we get through those 3 topics, then we turn our attention in the book to the tools that we have available to make this plan happen, or just to start strategizing with the tools that we have. So it explains wills. Wills are ancient, how they work. We're not really fighting about how they work. They've been around forever. There's a section on trusts. How do trusts work? Why were they invented? What problem did they solve? And what problem do they solve for us today? And from there, it gets into like how to make that decision, how important that decision is of who's in charge. I've had a lot of clients say, just, put my 6 kids in birth order. And maybe it's true that all 6 of your kids in birth order are equally capable of this task, but maybe not. And maybe there's some reason to pause and really think about what this job is, not as an honorary title to the people that you love, but think of it as the job that it is. And who are you going to appoint to that work? Because it's work. Right. You and I both. It's
work. It's a job. Having done it, it's a job. And having done it professionally as well as personally, it's a job. You should get paid for it. People who are capable of running a business, if the estate's $1 million, if you can't run $1 million business and liquidating it, that's really what you're doing. And if you wouldn't hire that person to be president of that $1 million business during liquidation, then you wouldn't hire them to be the administrator of the trust, I would think.
Gosh, that is such a great example. Yes, absolutely.
From personal experience.
Yeah. It's
a job. I've done that job. It's not like it's rocket science, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of details. It's a lot of communication. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of long phone calls explaining people something, and they're upset. They have no right to be upset. But you got to listen to them. It's a job.
Yeah. And, I think once you realize that, once you think about that, you realize you really don't know that many people, and that's okay. Right. But it helps you distill down, who should you really be thinking of? For some people, they don't have anybody. In Nevada, we have so many trust companies because of our trust laws being very permissive and very flexible. Lots of trust companies here. And many of those trust companies will agree to serve as your third party trustee. And you don't have to pay up front. It's something they collect a fee for when they do the work. So we have, some nice solutions here in Nevada. Other states might have something similar with professional fiduciaries. And then the book gets into the importance of incapacity planning, which is your powers of attorney, the financial power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney. It gets into the nature of those choices that we're making in those documents, which I think are sometimes more difficult to think about than to actually just pass away, right? And so we address each of those sections and, what those choices are. I think, too, being exposed to that in this book, you're just not shocked by it. It doesn't slap you in the face when you're sitting in a lawyer's office. You're prepared for, it's going to be a hard topic, no matter how good my jokes are. It's not going to be easy.
They're pretty good. You're pretty good. It's pretty good. All right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay money to see you do stand up, but I mean, it was pretty good. A book from an attorney was pretty good, actually.
Sure. Yeah. If the ticket was free, we'll see. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a section about the living will. There's a section about planning or prepaying for funeral care, and what a nice capstone that can be on a well-written plan, that your family really doesn't have to lift a finger, and they can just be in their grief and care about you and not have to worry about the funeral or anything like that. And then there's a whole chapter on the importance of getting it signed. Like you said, finish it, sign it, date it, get the notary, get the witnesses, do it right.
Having done the funeral arrangements 4 times for mine and my wife's parents, if anybody had just said package A at Forest Hills, it would just have been so nice.
Right.
I remember my father-in-law, bless his memory, passed, and he had been career military, and then he ran a VA clinic. So very important to him, his personality, but his service, military service. And I was there the day of the funeral. I said, I know there's no color guard, but is there a flag? I mean, he was a colonel in the Air Force. And he wasn't like just some guy, with a wrench on bolts. He was like pretty, he was a colonel. And I said, oh, colonel, yeah, let me get on that. And they at first it was like, no, we can't help you. Then it was, Oh, Colonel, yeah, we'll get a flag. We'll figure that one out. So had to be planned ahead, it would have been maybe a color guard or at least a little
Sure.
more, but it all worked out. So,
Yeah.
okay. So look, a lot of fun. Always had a lot of fun with you, Nicole. I always learned a lot. I think more important than that, I feel like you set a real high bar for our behavior and standards with our clients. And I do appreciate every time we've chatted. For people who don't just want the book for the funny jokes, but actually want to engage with you as an actual attorney doing actual legal work, NevadaCounsel.com is your website.
Yes.
And then if you want her contact information, it'll be down below on the banner. Feel free to reach out to her directly. If you're listening on the audio, can't write it down, reach out to me. I'd be more glad to make an introduction and help you with your legal needs in the state of Nevada, or getting a copy of her book, or just in general talking about things that are important to you and her. So Nicole, thank you again. I've always had a lot of fun with you on the call. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's good to see you.
And for the rest of you, this was Estate Planning Weekly. We get together every week and we interview attorneys and vendors around the country to help us be more effective in our job. As a realtor, it's really important. I think we have these discussions with our clients, encourage them to do the planning so they can get the wealth that they want out of the property we sell them or help them get. If I can help, I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media. Reach out, call, email, text, put some discussion down here on this if you're watching it. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.